Hey guys, Elizabeth Blackstock here, U.S. editor over at planetf1.com. Now, I've been keeping close tabs on the evolution of the incoming Cadillac team, and I'm taking over from Sean at the F1 Word today in order to make a case for my ideal driver lineup when the team hits the global stage in 2026. Well, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Cadillac entry by now. I just want to run through a little refresher of how this team came to be, because I think it really helps me to articulate why I'm choosing certain drivers. In 2023, the FIA opened up an expression of interest for prospective teams to apply to join the F1 grid, and the only team that made it through the first round was Andretti Autosport. Andretti Autosport is an American motorsport team that was helmed by Michael Andretti, who's the son of 1978 world champion Mario Andretti. And it was the Andretti ties with Group 1001 and Gamebridge head Dan Tauris that gave them the funds to actually make the F1 bid happen. To better bolster its entry, Andretti changed its name from Andretti Autosport to Andretti Global and signed Cadillac as a prospective power unit supplier for the future. But there's some bad blood between Michael Andretti and Formula One management, which resulted in the FOM rejecting the entry in a pretty brutal fashion. Michael Andretti stepped down, Dan Tauris stepped up, Cadillac took on a bigger role, and voila! Just before the end of the 2024 F1 season, Cadillac got its approval to join the grid for 2026. It'll take until 2029 before Cadillac's power units are ready, so in the meantime, the team will run with Ferrari units. Its major goals during this Ferrari era all revolve around getting the team up and running efficiently. That means hiring capable staff, producing a chassis, learning how to work together as a team, and figuring out how to operate as an 11th team in the Formula One sphere against a whole lot of great competition. I spoke with Graham Loudon at the Miami Grand Prix, and he told me that the team is really staying focused on building its foundation. Driver choice is important, but at this point in time, it's a little less important than hiring the folks who are actually going to build the chassis. It's still early enough in the season where there are plenty of great drivers available, but again, the team's first few years are all about finding its footing. Cadillac intends to really become a force to be reckoned with when it brings its power units to the sport. But until that point, they really just kind of want to get a feel for what they're doing and see exactly how well they can perform. So even though Graham Loudon says we're not looking at drivers just yet, that has not stopped fans and pundits and journalists from speculating on who those drivers should be, and today, I'm going to make my own case for the ideal Cadillac F1 lineup. First and foremost, I think we're going to need a Formula One veteran to really get this team off the ground, and we have a ton of options to choose from considering how many rookies we saw get on the grid this year. I've seen a bunch of people make convincing cases for different drivers. Zhou Guanyu makes sense because Cadillac F1 team boss Graham Loudon is his manager. Valtteri Bottas makes sense considering he's lived through Mercedes' successes and Sauber struggles, which should mean he knows what to do and what not to do when building a car. Daniel Ricciardo makes sense because he's basically as close to an American as you can get without actually being American, and because he's got a huge fan base here in the United States. But I'm going in a different direction. I'm picking Sergio Perez. Now, I know there are a lot of folks out there who are going to absolutely hate that idea, but stick with me while I explain my logic. Perez is one of those drivers who never quite got a good shot in F1. And I know there are people who are saying, but what about Red Bull? I think we should all be very clear by now that being the second driver at Red Bull is probably one of the most thankless jobs on the grid. When Perez first started struggling in 2023, Red Bull largely put his concerns on the back burner because Max Verstappen was absolutely dominating. And in 2024, when those same issues started to compromise Verstappen, that was when Red Bull acknowledged that they probably went down the wrong developmental path. While I don't know that Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda are exactly perfect yardsticks by which to measure Perez, I do think the fact that Red Bull has seen both of its second drivers struggle this season should imply that Perez was not the only slow thing about the car. What Checo does have in spades is experience. He spent a decade and a half in Formula One, living through all kinds of varying rule sets and working with a variety of different midfield teams in an effort to keep them competitive. He has managed to take a mediocre car and race it into finishing positions that it otherwise shouldn't have earned, and he's helped develop many of those middling teams into stronger and more well-rounded competitors. Let's think back to what Graham Loudon told me in Miami. The early goal of Cadillac F1 is not to jump out of the gates and win a championship right from the get-go. Yeah, that would be nice, but if you're going to be pragmatic, it would be good to assume that it'll take a few years for a brand new team built from the ground up to find its footing. And you're going to want an experienced, reliable guy behind the wheel to keep you trucking along developmentally. Plus, I do think there's a huge case to be made for the popularity angle. Sergio Perez brings with him a huge fan base in North America, as well as heaps of money from Mexican sponsors. Cadillac and Dan Tauris both do have big budgets, but a lucrative sponsorship package from Telmex or other Perez sponsors like Disney, Nescafe, and Kit Kat will be hugely helpful in getting the team off the ground. Plus, if you want to appeal to Americans, a lot of American fans have adopted Sergio Perez as one of their own. For me, that's huge. I think you can make a really great case for other veterans to join the team, like Valtteri Bottas, but there is no driver who has Perez levels of backing. That's why he's my first pick for Cadillac F1. Now we've got our veterans sorted out, and we're going to need a second driver. When the current Cadillac team was primarily helmed by Andretti Global, they were bullish about signing an American driver. And American fans have been dreaming about an American driver on an American team ever since Haas joined the grid. You definitely got the sense that Andretti wanted to fill that dream, and it makes sense. Andretti Global has teams and race series all around the world, but in IndyCar, where it finds its most success, it fields two great American drivers, Colton Herta and Kyle Kirkwood. Herta's name has been most closely tied to the Cadillac seat, but I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever seen him as the ideal contender. If you've been keeping tabs on IndyCar, you'll know that his 2025 season has been kind of a disaster thanks to a lot of little mistakes by both Herta and his team. It's really not looking like he's going to secure a strong enough championship finish to earn a super license, and that's really crucial. Keep looking around, and you'll find that there aren't a ton of other American drivers lined up to easily slot into Cadillac F1. If you're going solely on the American criteria, then that driver would be Jack Crawford, who's in his third year of Formula 2. But if you've noticed recently, it certainly seems like Cadillac has been walking back its Go American or Go Home mandate. In Miami, team principal Graham Loudon said that while a lot of people are hoping for an American driver, Cadillac is going to consider the merit of the drivers it signs first and foremost. To my mind, there really aren't any standout American drivers right now who would be eligible for Formula One. But for Cadillac's second seat, I'm still keeping my eye on the American motorsport scene, and I'm going to be picking none other than Alex Palou. Maybe part of this is a little selfish because I personally would like to see IndyCar get a little bit more unpredictable again. But when you look at the way Palou is dominating the sport right now, it's hard not to wonder what he could do in a Formula One machine. At the time of recording, we are 5 races into the IndyCar season. Alex Palou has won 4 of them, and in the race he didn't win, he finished second. He has an almost 100-point lead on the next closest driver in the championship, and there are no signs of him slowing down. His biggest weakness in this series is his performance on oval tracks, but that's no concern in F1. And I think it's worth noting that Palou isn't just good in open-wheel racing. He's been a regular feature at major endurance racing events like the Rolex 24 and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And last year, he seriously impressed with Cadillac over in France. It was his first time at the track, and yet he managed to work magic every single time he was behind the wheel. Trust me, I attended that race as a guest of Cadillac's, and the entire team was in awe of his performance. It was pretty much the only thing anyone wanted to talk about. The only issue I can see with Palou centers around some contract drama that took place a few years ago. If you remember Oscar Piastri's bombshell tweet that he hadn't agreed to race with Alpine in Formula One back in 2022, well, Palou had pretty much the same thing happen in IndyCar around the same exact time. Chip Ganassi Racing, the team that Alex Palou currently races for, announced that he would drive with them in IndyCar in 2023. And Palou said, actually, that's not going to happen. He'd inked a deal with McLaren that would see him serve as a reserve driver in F1 while he would compete in IndyCar with the team. The whole goal was one day to put Palou in the F1 seat. It was a hot mess, and the whole affair had to go to court, where it was determined that Palou was contractually obligated to remain with Chip Ganassi and that he would have to pay damages to McLaren. My big sticking point here is that McLaren's IndyCar program is powered by Chevrolet engines. Chevy is a subsidiary of General Motors, just like Cadillac. The reason he raced with Cadillac at Le Mans was because Chip Ganassi had an endurance racing partnership with the team, but that partnership folded heading into the 2025 season. Would his CGR ties have helped Palou get the seat at Cadillac F1? Did he annoy enough people at GM with his McLaren contract shenanigans to prevent him from being considered for a future role with the company? It's really hard to say, but I'm still putting my eggs in the Alex Palou basket. It's hard to think of any other non-F1 driver who has been so incredibly impressive and consistent recently. So that's my dream Cadillac lineup, Sergio Perez and Alex Palou. But I know plenty of y'all have different ideas, and I want to hear all about them. Head down to the comments to let us know your ideal Caddy lineup, and don't forget to subscribe to the F1 Word. I've been Elizabeth Blackstock, and you can find more of my work over at planetf1.com. Thanks for joining me here today. I'll see you next time.